Friends, today we are talking about some of the most popular, well-known laws in the Torah, the food laws. The laws that break down which animals are clean and which are unclean for the Israelites to eat. You probably know these as part of kosher law. And along with circumcision and Sabbath, kosher law is one of the most distinctive markers of what it means to be a Torah-observant Jew. Even today, you might know people who observe these food laws still today. They set Jews apart with their distinct identity. And when we read this passage, I think the natural question for us to ask is, why food laws? Why does God care what they eat? Right? If I am asking you, if all of us as a team are asking you to consider the law not as a list of do's and don'ts, but as like an agent of formation, that it's supposed to be shaping people. What sort of shaping and formation is supposed to be happening here? And I think Moses points to this answer in verse 2 of chapter 14. He says, "For you are a people holy to your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all of the peoples who are on the face of the earth." Do these words sound familiar to you by now? They have been repeated throughout the book of Deuteronomy, and if you have been tracking with us, you probably recognize that he's quoting from Exodus 19 and the calling that God gave Israel to be his chosen nation, a holy people, and a kingdom of priests. When God says that he wants them to be holy, holy is kind of this religious-y, nebulous word that you might not know what it really means, but it's actually simple. It means set apart, distinct, unique, different from everybody else. And God is holy and unique and distinct. And so he calls his people to be holy too. A, because then they reflect his character, and B, because it's attention-getting, right? And part of what Israel is supposed to do going into the promised land is catch the attention of all the nations around them. Their neighbors are supposed to look at them and say, what is going on in Israel? There is something different about these people. They treat each other differently. They do life differently. They treat their God differently. There is supposed to be something unique about Israel, and the food laws are just one aspect of that. And if you think about it, food is a really practical way to incorporate holiness into the everyday rhythm of Israel's life, right? They eat multiple times a day. For us in our modern society, we're supposed to eat 3 times a day, ideally, right? So imagine being reminded 3 times per day of the calling on your life and on your people's lives to be a holy nation. 3 times per day, or however many times they ate that day, Israel would sit down to eat and be reminded, God has chosen me and I have chosen God, and so this is my mission. One of my favorite scholars on Deuteronomy says, "A God who governs the kitchen is a God who is not easily forgotten," and I think he's right. Eating is so embedded into our society that making holiness an aspect of our eating habits is a really great way for God to embed holiness into daily life. And you know that you and I are supposed to be holy people. We are supposed to be set apart too. But if you were with us last year for our Acts Bible reading plan, you know that a decision was made by the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15 that we don't need to follow these food laws anymore. They decided that these markers of the Jewish identity, circumcision, Sabbath, kosher law, were no longer required for Gentiles who converted because they were brought into the family of God by faith alone, not by any sort of Jewish identity, right? Jesus flung the doors of the kingdom wide open for everybody, and you are adopted in by faith, so you don't need to practice these food laws. But remember the words of Peter in one of his epistles to the church, post-resurrection, post the spread of the church all throughout the Gentile world. He says to all of us, you are a chosen people and a holy nation. You are being built up like living stones into a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. The priestly calling of holiness to stand out among our neighbors is no different for you and I. We are still supposed to be attention-getting. People are supposed to see that we walk in the world differently, treat each other differently, and treat God differently. So no, you don't need to follow the food laws. But you are still called to be holy. And so for you in your everyday life, in the routines that are as normal as eating and drinking, how can you be set apart? How can you and I be unique in the gritty normalcy of every day? So that when others see us, they see there's something different about them. There's something different about the way that they relate to their God. And then it might spark curiosity and wonder that might lead them to the God we follow. So friends, I encourage you to think about, if it's not food laws for us, what is it that sets us apart in our everyday? Take care. See you next time.